Ooh, some bright lights going on up here. It's hard to see you all. You know, I've never really done much stand-up comedy before, except for getting a lot of trouble as a kid. That was always a big part of my thing, was whenever I was in school, I would just sort of interpret the rules in the way that made the most sense to me. So I would have to explain this a lot to people, and I got pretty good at being on stage, dealing with pressure and stuff, and it seems like watching people, this is not necessarily something that y'all are completely comfortable with. And I think the reason for it is that you've never done sales. Ultimately, when you do sales, you realize that everyone hates you, but you don't have to take it personally. Like, there are some people up here doing some sales. I think some guy was like selling his butt in the parking lot or something. Another guy was selling packages. There's a lot of like repressed gay energy I've noticed on the Orlando comedy scene. I think it just has to do with the rampant pornography addiction. But I don't really blame people, because we all have these scrying glasses in our pocket that'll just show you whatever you want. And now with rock and Imagine and stuff, I'm not even joking, guys. I have not even played around with the level of pornography that it is possible to generate with your phone these days, because I am convinced that it is a demon. Seriously, you're like summoning up a succubus to just suck the male life force out of you. Does Elon Musk live in Florida? Does anyone know? Well, anyway, so one time I was in Florida, and I saw this SpaceX rocket traveling up, and it looks like it leaves the atmosphere. So I go on my phone and look up, I'm like, did a SpaceX rocket launch and leave the atmosphere? And it did. And the thing to take away from this is that man has a lot of pent-up sexual energy. Those rockets don't build themselves. I think the man has like 10 children. So he's just taking all of that energy and he is putting it into giant phalluses to the sky. And I can't help but think back to medieval Europe and the castles. Those castles didn't build themselves. You know what we see a lot of these days? Planned Parenthood. You know what we don't see? Damsels in towers. Behind every damsel in a tower was a man who was ready to be a father. He just stuck her up there, not to deprive her of free will. He was like, look, honey, I just had to build this giant tower because I have so much energy, and that was actually what attracted her to him in the first place. And he realized he had to keep her away from old feminists because they were going to encourage her to abort their children. This is where you get all these Grimm's fairy tales about damsels in towers from. It's a lot of men who are ready to be fathers. You know, speaking about being a father, I think a lot of people make parenthood much harder for themselves than they have to. You know, like, I was raised in Greek mythology, so I was always very grateful to my parents for not eating me. A lot of these kids these days, they're like, their parents let them watch Disney and everything, so they're all traumatized because they didn't get the new, like, Bugatti or whatever, and they got, like, the wrong color car. My daughter's favorite movie is Prince of Egypt. She just asks me every day about genocide. She's 4.5. And I just tell her, I'm like, yeah, Daddy's got to go to work to prevent the men with swords from coming and killing all of you. Just like in the Prince of Egypt that I show you every single day, pretty much. And it honestly makes parenthood so much easier. Like, the same way, like, comedy can be a lot easier. Like, it's funny because it's true. You just come up, go on stage, you say a bunch of true stuff. People laugh or they don't laugh. I noticed the Orlando comedy scene is a lot of comics performing for other comics. It's like everyone's sitting there, they're all just like waiting for their set to come up, and they're like, you can hear the tension in the room. Everyone's wondering, they're like, what does this mean for me? And I already told you, it's like sales. Everyone hates you, so you don't need to take it personally. It reminds me of when I was doing health coaching. You know, I've got a sort of a funny story. I'm actually the first person to ever survive fatal insomnia. So I started losing the ability to sleep completely when I was 16 years old, and I would just like shit blood in the bathroom during wrestling practice after not sleeping for like 3 weeks. And then I would go back to wrestling practice. They would scream in my car. And then people tell me now, they're like, I really wish that I'd wrestled in high school. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, I tried to get you to wrestle, and you had no interest in wrestling whatsoever. And for some reason, I didn't quit, I did go to the doctor. I went and I talked to him about this problem. I was like, doctor, I haven't slept in 3 weeks. And this brief look of terror passes over his face. And then he says, that's not possible. With a tone of voice that made it very, very clear that if I insisted that what I was experiencing was what I was experiencing, that he was going to have me institutionalized. He then proceeds to say, so you want the drugs? And I'm like, you mean the drugs that prevent you from entering REM sleep? He's like, so you don't want the drugs? And I didn't take the drugs.